I'm going to talk about some stuff, and I don't care if you believe me or not. I hope that you don't either, and will just listen for a bit. I killed a man last year, and I feel the gauntlet coming down. I'm sure I'll be arrested soon. When I do, I'm going to confess, so I'm not worried about this getting me into legal trouble. Anyway, it started years ago, maybe 2006 to 2007. I was getting close to graduating high school, and my group of friends was eclectic, to say the least. Most of us stoners, all of us going through that edgy phase one goes through in your teens. Mostly, this meant underage drinking. Camping trips where the only thing anybody ate was mushrooms. A few of us were a little more out there than others. We had bad home lives and addict/absent parents. We indulged in self-mutilation, the occult, psychic vampirism, etc. It was all just Halloween though, just a front. Anyway, that summer, me and my buddy Luke made friends with these guys we met at a backyard doom show. They were older than us, probably like mid-20s. They brought us beer and treated us like equals, and it made us feel really grown up. They would also self-harm like us, and encouraged it. A few months of hanging out with them, and we found out that they had a pretty steady supply of acid, which we of course took full advantage of. We would drop a full strip some nights, and on those nights, things would start getting a little weird. Tripping balls one night, doom guys start harming themselves. This is somewhat normal. They take each other's arms and start drinking from each other. Encourage us to start doing it too. Don't really want to. Get peer pressured into it. Make a pretty good gash on myself. Luke puts his arms out, so I do it to him too. Doom guys come over, take our arms, and give us their arms. My heart is beating super fast, but when you're an experienced druggie and you're tripping that hard, the tendency is just to go wherever the night takes you. Drink from them. Be drank from. We all switch our arms around, so we all get some from each person. Afterwards, feel really weird. Go lay down on a mattress in the hall. The lighting seems really weird. My trip is peaking, and I feel so floaty. Cover my head with a sheet, and just lay there for the next 8 hours or so. Finally sleep. The next morning, when we got up and looked around, everything was caked in blood. Our arms were all caked and cut up, and our mouths, faces, and hair were all covered. My arms stung, but all of the cuts were superficial. Cleaned myself up in the sink. Walk home alone. I felt really weird about that night. Not anything supernatural weird. It's not that kind of story. There are no ghosts or demons or anything like that. No real vampires, in case you were worried. I mean, I thought the vampire thing was romantic and edgy and everything, but this felt sexual. This felt like I'm gay for blood now or something. Anyway, I decided not to hang out with those guys for a while, which worked for about 2 weeks, and then I was right back over there. I would get into physical confrontations with my mom's many boyfriends all the time, and a lot of nights I would just have nowhere to go but their house. Every time, we would do whatever drug they had, often hallucinogens, but sometimes opiates or uppers, or a combination of any and all of those things, and every time, we would cut and drink. It was becoming normal. These meetups continue for a couple of years, though once I turned 18 and got my first apartment, I started only going maybe once a month. Eventually, I stopped cutting, would duck out when it started. They're all, including Luke, getting mad at me. Really, it's like I didn't know Luke anymore at all. He had moved in with them full time now. Worked like 20 hours a week as an overnight stalker at Walmart. He asked if we were still friends. Told him sure, but I'm not doing any of that stuff anymore, and I'm off everything besides weed. He says, I guess I know, and gave me this awful, hateful look. Stopped going completely. This was about 2 years ago that I stopped altogether. It would not be close to the last time I would see them though. They would just happen to be at the grocery store at the same time I was, or would just happen to be driving by my house. I would get phone calls late at night that would hang up as soon as I answered. I still kept in contact with Luke a little. I asked him if he knew what was going on. He said he had no idea. Said that wolves don't have to look after each other. What the fuck? So, fast forward to the beginning of last year, and I get an email from one of the Doom guys. He was cool, casual, asked me how I'd been, said he was sorry for being so weird, blamed it on the drugs, etc. I had not heard or seen him in a really long time, so I replied. Told him I was doing fine, was glad that he was clean now too, yada yada. Maybe a week later, Luke texts me, asks if I want to meet him at a local bar. I'm not doing anything, what the hell? Maybe they've all turned a new leaf. Show up, Luke is there, and so are all 3 Doom guys. I am a little apprehensive, but we are in public and drinking. No fiending on drugs in a shitty apartment. Sit down at the table with them, have an alright time, order many pitchers. Everybody leaves. They let me pick up the bill. Bunch of fucking jerks. Do the whole reconnecting thing. Add them all on Facebook, etc. We meet up a few more times. They always invite me back to their place, but I never go. So, here is when the shit starts again, which I will describe in my next post. Is anybody out there reading? Fast forward again. Attending concert with then girlfriend. Run into the Guess Who gang. Say they're going to an after party with one of the bands. Invite us. GF wants to go. I'm drunk. Want to impress her with my sweet underworld connections. So we go. To this old trailer. Party going on inside. Ben was there. Cool guys. Get more drunk. See one of the Doom guys giving my girlfriend some powder. Intervene, sort of. I mean, she was already doing the line. Hey, what are you guys doing? GF laughs and says, partying. Doom guy laughs too. Offers some to me. What is it? MDMA. Nah man, that's alright. Come on. Okay. So I do a little bump. I know. Getting back into the party spirit. Go outside to smoke a cigarette. Doom guys are outside smoking too. They start talking about old times, bloodletting, etc. I'm like, yeah, glad that's over, huh. They don't agree. Want to do it again, for old time's sake. Hell no, dude. Not me. Not again. They get a little irate, but tell me I'll come around. The party is winding down. Not very many people left. Go to find GF. She's in a bedroom with Doom guys and some other girl. I'm kinda mad now. Open the door really harshly. Hey guys, what are we up to right now? Smoking crack. GF is tripping dicks and already smoking. Make a mental note to dump her. I've been down this road. I know what's coming. They start the ritual. GF joins in on the ritual. I fucking leave, drive home. Left GF there and blocked her and Doom guys on social media. Everything was quiet for a few days. Got some messages from GF's family, asking what happened, why I ghosted, etc. I did not respond. Soon, I started getting texts and calls from Doom guys. I blocked their numbers. Started getting calls from blocked numbers and never answered them. One morning, I wake up, and what do I see? It's Luke on my fire escape, covered in blood. His arms are slashed up, and his chest is pretty slashed up too. He's leaning against the glass of my window. His head is down, and he is very pale. I think he is probably bleeding out, and is about to die of blood loss. I open the window and let him in. He tells me they had to come see me, because we began a circle years ago, and the circle is now severed without me. I'm yelling, are you fucking for real? We are in our mid-20s now. Doom guys are in the 40s. You guys are still doing this fucking Marilyn Manson and Rice vampire bullshit. Wait, why did you say we? Doom guy number 1 comes in from window. Tells me that I have to come to complete the circle. His pupils are huge. He is tripping nuts right now. Tell him that's not happening and get the fuck out of my apartment. He lifts up his fucking PVC trenchcoat sleeves and his arms are all messed up like Luke's. He takes his cheap fillet knife out of his pocket and opens a new gash. Drink me again, child. I know that you yearn for the dark gift again. Screaming at him, oh fuck you and your wannabe bullshit man. grow up. I'm cursing and looking around for some kind of weapon because he's got a knife and he literally wants blood. I pick up a cast iron skillet since we were in the kitchen already. If you don't get the fuck out of here, I'm gonna beat you to goddamn death, dude. He lunges at me. I was not ready for it because I did not honestly think he would have had the balls to come at me like that. He is grey in the hair now and much more frail than he already was back then. He immediately slaps the skillet out of my hand. He goes to slash my face with the fillet knife. I instinctively put my hands up, palms out, and he slashes across both of my hands. Yelling in pain, I tried to grab his wrists, but my hands were bloody and I could not get a good grip. He started licking my blood off of his hands. Luke is laying, passed out behind us. I've got to get him off me somehow. I've got at least 30 pounds on him, but he is on top, and very, I guess you'd say wiry. He was just locked on me and not budging. I managed to roll around so that he was on my back. He put his head down behind mine and was licking at my neck. I headbutted him with the back of my head. The surprise gave me the time to crawl away. I stand up. He's still getting back on his feet. I shove him pretty hard, and he falls backwards onto his back. I ran over and stomped him in the face a few times, but his teeth cut the bottom of my foot. I fall over. He is still struggling. Kick at him a few more times. We both start getting up. Lunge him and grab him by the neck. Just started squeezing as hard as I could. I was so consumed with the moment that I don't think I consciously thought, I'm going to kill him now, but that's what I did. He stopped moving after a while. I pulled him into the bathtub and opened up his forearms to make it look like he took his own life. Then I wrapped up Luke's arms and waited for him to sleep it off. I did my best to try to clean up while he was sleeping. Luke wakes up. Tell him that Doom Guy died during last night's circle. Tell Luke it's his fault. Lead him to the body. Luke is freaking out, talking about prison. Tell him I will help him clean it up, since it happened in my apartment. We are both guilty, see? We take a day, cutting Doom Guy apart. It took a long time, because the sharpest knife I could find was the fillet knife he had brought with him. We had to cut all the meat until we got to the bone, and then pull and twist until it snapped or came loose. There was so much blood, we took regular breaks to let the water in the shower run over it for a while, to sort of spot clean while we did what we did. We put all the parts into trash bags and drove down to Prospect Park in Brooklyn and waited for the right time. Once it was dark, we put the bags in a couple of trash cans with some rocks and threw them into the lake. Why didn't you just call the cops, OP? Trespassing, assault with a deadly weapon. Shit, you could even argue attempted murder. You obviously killed in self-defense. Is there a specific reason you did not want to go through the police? You would be interrogated, don't get me wrong, maybe even see a trial, but you would come out in the clear, especially after the coroner reported that he was on so many drugs. Maybe I should have, but at the time, strangulation did not seem like a legitimate self-defense move, and he was so cut up, it would have looked like I tortured him or something. Honestly, this is something I have thought obsessively over the years. Why didn't I just call the cops? The best answer I can come up with is that I was scared, and operating on pure adrenaline, anxiety, and paranoia. There was no time to call the cops while he was there and alive, and by the time that was settled, I had already killed him. It seemed like a good idea at the time. So, is that it? No trouble between you and Luke over that, or anything happen at all? Seems to me like you got away with it clean. What makes you think you're getting arrested soon? We said our goodbyes and have not spoken since. I tricked and used him, so I wanted it to be the last thing we did together. Last week, I was questioned by a detective about Matt. Fuck it. I don't know why I bother concealing their names anyway. He said he is still considered missing. I asked why they were just investigating it now, and he said that new evidence had come up. Then asked me about Luke. I played stupid the whole time, but I just know it's coming. That man has been haunting me ever since, and I think it's time for me to get my comeuppance. Fake. If you couldn't get a malnourished junkie off you, I doubt you would have been able to strangle one. And unless your friend is a total fucking moron, he would have noticed the bruises around his neck, and it would not take over a year for the police to find you. If any of this were real, you would have been caught within a month tops. It's almost impossible to get away with murder in New York. Not to mention how many witnesses must have seen two junkies covered in blood wandering around your apartment. All is not going to be well, sorry to say. Even if he did kill Matt in self-defense, after they basically broke into his house, tripping or whatever, good defense, great defense, he still dismembered a body and put it to sleep with the fishies. Unless the cops think Luke did it on his own, and they just want OP as a character witness, they found something tying OP to a bunch of bones at the bottom of a river. Either way, Godspeed OP. I'm sure you can get through it. I'm just kind of waiting for whatever happens next to happen. If they talk to me again, whatever. Maybe Luke confessed to something. I don't think they have a body yet. Otherwise, I feel like scrutiny would be a lot more serious than just a detective coming to talk to me. Maybe I'm just blowing it out of proportion and everything will be okay. I don't know. I just know if the cuffs go on, I'm not going to fight it in court. I'm going to say I'm sorry for what I did and explain the whole situation and hope they are nice. I'm shaking while I write this. I'm honestly pretty afraid of the idea of prison. See, you didn't address my one major concern, the witnesses. How did nobody notice this? You're telling me that nobody cared about the junkies with visible wounds walking around one of the most populated states in America, and that nobody heard your fight going on. And seriously, nobody is going to care about a junkie going missing in a shitty neighborhood, yet they seem to care enough to send a detective to investigate a year later. Nobody cared about my uncle walking miles with his wrists pissing with blood when he took his own life. If a single human being had showed interest or called the authorities, he might still be here. People just don't care. Not saying OP's story is true, just saying from personal experience, nobody gives a shit about cut-up junkies wandering the streets. The world has gotten me feeling a certain kind of way tonight, so here goes. Be me, 6 years old. Stay at grandparents' house overnight due to maintenance problem with family home. Always like grandma, place felt safe. Wake up in the middle of the night, abruptly aware that something else was in the room. Bed was in the middle of the room, with a U-shaped walking space connecting two doors on either side of the bed. Moonlight, I think, was brightly illuminating the window, keeping the room pretty lit. Some glowing white humanoid shape, not pasty skin, but made of white light that did not give off any luminescence, was walking from one doorway of the room. Eyes were lit red. Outline looked human, but its head was weirdly stacked. I remember thinking its shape looked like a woman with a towel wrapped around her hair. Oh fuck, I need to pretend to be sleeping. Pinched myself to confirm I was awake. It hurt. Thanks, cartoons. Close my eyes. Immediately start dreaming of another place. Have a very long and intense series of dreams involving a massive wasteland with a skyscraper-sized dead tree and a full moon against a blood-red sky. Occasionally open my eyes to spot the white thing still walking through the room very slowly. Close eyes. Immediately back in the dream again. Dream goes on for a long time. Fall into an underground city full of, I don't know how to describe them, hungry zombie-type humanoids. Spend hours running through a dark labyrinth. Keep my eyes very closed because the thing is walking right past me to get to the other door. Feels like I spend hours in the labyrinth. Eventually open my eyes and it's moved out of the bedroom and down the hallway to the bathroom. I never see it again. As an adult, many years later, I realize that this is the definitive moment where I developed aphantasia because my mind's eye was blinded after this experience and I could not envision anything ever again while I was awake. I sometimes have vivid dreams. Some OC. Be me. Driving home to house I've lived in for 8 years. Normal day. Normal drive home until I get 300 feet away from my driveway. A small house that was never there before is nestled behind some trees just down the road from my home. Ask my wife when I get home if she's ever noticed the house. Nope. Did not think too much of it. Noticed the little abandoned house a few more times going to/from work and think it's odd. A few weeks later, have neighbors over to watch hockey. Neighbor asked me if I noticed that same house. Laugh and tell him the wife and I were just discussing it and how no one seems to remember it. Neighbor lives slightly closer to the mystery from us, where that house is in full view from his back door. Nobody remembers it being there. Neighbor and I, hanging out a few days later, decide to grab some flashlights and go check this place out up close. The driveway leading to the house has been overgrown for years and completely disappears before getting to our road. Overgrowth gone wild. We get up close and it's brick, only a couple bedrooms, and the siding is covered in ivy, windows boarded. This thing has been abandoned for a long time. On further inspection, the house becomes utterly bizarre. Nothing seems to add up, and while it looks like a normal small house from a distance, up close, it looks like it's made of cheap plastic. The door is several feet off the ground. The windows are only a foot or so from the ground. The front door is locked and fairly sturdy, so we go to one of the windows and both lean over to look inside. What is inside is even more bizarre somehow. Where the chimney connects on the outside of the house, there is no fireplace. Where the front door is, there is a wall. The front door is also several feet off the floor, inside in the house. Fucking what? We go to the bedroom window, and there is a plastic child's chair with no legs facing the door. The walls look like Lego plastic. There is a bed, but it is misshapen. Not like it is old or destroyed, just like it's just wrong. The legs of the frame are all different lengths. The mattress that is half laying on the floor and half hanging on the frame is not an even rectangle, but the mattress is immaculate, and again, looks like cheap plastic. Neighbor and I scratch our heads. We try to get in through the bedroom window, but it won't budge. Give up and walk back to my house. Notice a piece of the plastic chair from the bedroom is laying on the ground in the overgrowth. Neighbor goes and picks it up, and it fucking disintegrates in his hands. Anywhere he touches it, the plastic just gives like wet paper. We still talk about this from time to time. I lived in an apartment complex that the buildings faced the road, with a building directly across from the other. I often could not sleep at night, much like tonight, and do things to pass the time. One night, out of sheer boredom, I decided to peek out of my window. I lifted up one little blind and peeked out. There was just the road, the street lamps, and the buildings. Being the weeaboo I am, I figured that someone left their window open while walking around naked, so I decided to look at the windows in the building. Up on the second floor of the building, to my left diagonal, was a man with his blinds pulled up and only a lamp illuminating him. All other lights were off. He stood in front of the window, staring out. It struck me as odd. He just stood there, barely moving. Only on occasion did he shift his body weight around. I shrugged it off and went back to doing other things. It wasn't until a few weeks after that curiosity poked me to peek out my window again. It was the same as before, nothing interesting, until I noticed the man again. He was doing the same thing, in the same way. He barely moved, and he seemed to be looking into the same spot. I was now intrigued. I then watched him for a good hour before I got bored and went to sleep. I decided to peek out the window the next night too, and again, the man was standing there. I then noticed that he had the same clothes on. It was a blue shirt and black pants. I continued this for several nights, for about an hour the first week, and then it stretched to being 2 hours. I could never figure out what this man was looking at. So, one night, I decided to go on a bit of a walk. I waited until it was dark and waited for him to approach the window and begin his devoid staring. I walked around looking at the building he was looking at, but nothing interesting was going on. This honestly gave me the chills. I expected that he was staring at someone or something interesting, but it was just the building. I continued to watch him for a few more weeks after that, but now I would just look to see if he was staring still. However, about 3 weeks after my walk, I peeked out and noticed something disturbingly different. He was standing at his window, and he was staring. But now, he was staring at me. His gaze sent shivers down my side. His gaze seemed like he was staring off into space, but also knew you were there. It had a very apathetic feel too, very devoid of pleasure. I looked at him for a while and went to bed. I was amused he found a new spot, but also startled. The next night, I looked again, and he was staring at me this time as well. I became very unnerved. I thought he might have noticed me, but he could not have. I only lifted an individual blind, and the buildings were far enough apart he would not be able to tell a single blind was lifted. In addition to that, my lights were always off because they casted a glare on the window. Nevertheless, I went to bed. The night afterwards was the same deal. This continued 2 more days until Friday. I had gone out with my friends, and one was coming over to spend the night. On our way back, with it being barely dusk, I passed by the man's apartment. I looked up and noticed his window was open. It was open too early that day, and he was standing in front of it. He was staring down at me, and he appeared annoyed. I stared up at him some more before he shook his head and closed the blinds. I did not look out the window that night. I was too entertained. However, the night afterwards I did, and his window was closed and no light was on. I figured he went out on a date for once, but this was not the case. In the time that I was there until I moved, he never opened the window again. I know he did not move because I remembered his car and it was still there when I moved out. Whatever it was he was looking for, I guess he found it. Closest time I ever came to pulling on someone was when I was working as an arms dealer. It was me and the owner in the store, and I think his wife was in the back office. We had this young Mexican guy come in, looked like a gang member, low pants, oversized shirt, hairnet. He was also acting weird, kinda nervous, and very talkative. After a few minutes, he asks if he can use the bathroom. My boss says yeah, and tells him where it is. He's gone for a long while, long enough my boss has to go check on him. I go in. He's in the far back stall. I leave, get back behind the counter on the middle of the store, and he comes out a few minutes later. He comes out, keeping up his strange habits, talking to my boss, which is at the other side of the store, leaving me kinda behind the guy. As he is talking and moving around, we both notice he's got a bulge on his right side. I look at my boss, and he motions to me to let me know as well, and the kid is still going on, asking about one of the big anti-aircraft guns from World War I that he had displayed. As he reaches up to touch the barrel, we see the bulge is a bottle of tequila. At that point, the boss tells him he thinks he should leave and pretty much escorts him from the store. We had been on edge because there had been a few armed robberies lately of pawn shops and another gun store by what the police had said was a gang hitting the place for weapons. We honestly thought the kid was armed, and he may not have seen me since I was in the back working at the time, which is why he came in. We figured out after he saw the bottle he was drunk and was drinking in the bathroom. Camp with friend. Sleep in my shitty car, he has tent. 3 a.m. Wake up to him pale as a ghost with a machete in one hand, banging on my window with the other. Emerge into the cold, ready to play Rust IRL. He says he awoke to someone walking near his tent. He drew his machete silently. Steps stop right next to tent. Suddenly, dead fire flares like someone threw a bucket of accelerant onto it. He bursts from his tent, roaring like an animal. No one there. No tracks. The fire has reignited from the coals we left at bedtime. His chest is heaving and he is sweating bullets. Never seen him this scared. Stay up rest of night, drinking Irish coffee, but see nothing. Go back to the same spot with jacked Scandinavian friend. He stands up from the fire mid-conversation and says something is near or some other Viking shit. Temperature drops. Oh shit, I'm feeling it. He rips his hatchet from a piece of firewood and brandishes it. Starts bellowing into the night in his native tongue. Something is moving out there. He works himself into a frenzy as it draws closer. Suddenly, charges into the night, roaring gutturally in Bjorkanese. I grab an empty beer bottle and charge after him, full of Dutch courage. Something retreats from us, scampering into the thickets. Temperature returns to normal. No further issues. My face went. I nearly bottled a goblin.